Hi everyone, going to be a quick video here. Wanted to make a few announcements here. First, the Spikemuth Cup format is finally live on PokemonShowdown.com. Of course, it's not going to be the real thing, but it's going to be good practice. And second, for those of you who prefer playing in the actual games, this is going to be an official friendly competition. So the way you join this is you go into the online competitions tab, then press the friendly competition option, and then enter this code here. So that is 1VM6-8D6VJ. And look at the UTC there and adjust per your time zone. So I wanted to post this as soon as possible. So I have a couple of games here and I'm going to be using the same team as last video. So Azu here has a near perfect matchup here. And what I want to do here is actually also I'm gonna bring the Eternatus, and that should put a lot of pressure off the Azu so that it doesn't have to take a lot of damage from the Kyogre and the Urshifu. But I'm gonna try bringing Whimsicott actually. I haven't brought it before, and if I can just get the Endeavor off on the Heatran, that could be really advantageous. So, and I do get the good lead matchup on top of that as well. So these were the things I was banking on for Whimsicott to have a good turn 1 lead matchup against Urshifu. And he does go for the Heatran switch in, which I definitely could have tried to read that and go for a Leech Seed. It's not like Urshifu can threaten too much immediate damage on the Whimsicott, so I guess that was on me for not predicting that. But I think I am still okay because I can try to endeavor this. And I decided to go for the Leech Seed in case if he were to try to say go for a predict on the switch, and that would be working out in my favor. But he does go for Magma Storm, and that is going to be a big concern here. That means I can't switch out, and I'm gonna take a lot of damage. But thanks to the Leech Seed recovery, I do still survive, and I am now forced to go for the Endeavor here. I don't want to mess around too much. But in fact, he also brought Mimikyu, so he didn't bring his Kyogre, and that kind of caught me off guard here. And definitely a very good play here from him. And I do decide to go for a Leech Seed here, but I'm not too confident in this play because he does Shadow Sneak, and I do get to get a free switch in to anything. It's probably going to be Eternatus because I do want to preserve my Azu's health. But at the same time, I could have just gone into the Eternatus directly on the Shadow Sneak. Or if I predict him to not Shadow Sneak, I could have gone for the Moonblast and actually get rid of the Disguise. And the Disguise is a lot more important than the Leech Seed. Here I do think he is going to switch right back out into Heatran, so I'm going to take this opportunity to get Azu in safely. And I fortunately get the double switch correct. And he brings out Heatran. I get a fairly safe liquidation here. But for example, he could switch out into his only water resist, but that would be Urshifu, and that would be also getting threatened pretty hard by the Play Rough, for example. And he does go right into Urshifu. Urshifu has a poor matchup against both the Azu and the Eternatus, so I definitely could have predicted that one there as well. And I go into Eternatus because I'm a bit concerned about a potential Thunder Punch, for example. I do really need to preserve as much health on the Azu as possible. And he goes for the close combat. And now this is again a pretty tough turn for me because, for example, I could just get a KO with the Dynamax Cannon against Urshifu, and alternatively he could go Heatran and I could double out. But at the same time, Urshifu has whatchamacallit. It doesn't gain too much value out of against both the Eternatus and the Azu. So I do go for the Dynamax Cannon here because I thought he might just sack it, but he does get a free switch into the Heatran, and he doesn't get punished because I didn't go for the double switch again. But it's not the end of the world. The best thing he gains out of that, at best, is just a free sack, and I'll be able to go straight into my Azu here, risking very little. I could get burned with a Lava Plume or something, but he did reveal a Magma Storm. Most Heatran don't carry both Lava Plume and Magma Storm, so I do feel fairly safe making this switch. He goes for the Earth Power. Let's see how much it does. That does very little, 40 HP. So I can switch into this several times here. And here this time I'm gonna call for the Urshifu switch in and go for a Play Rough. And yeah, he does bring out the Urshifu. He sacks it. I get this play right. And the match is 2-2. So he will definitely bring out his Mimikyu. And he has a few options here. One thing he can do is try to max Phantasm. Or the other thing he could do is just Sword Stance first and try to do that. Or he could just Phantom Force and try to predict me Dynamaxing. Yeah, I do have to go for the Max Geyser because the threat of Max Phantasm is too great. But let's see what he does. He goes for the Sword Stance here, and I am able to break this Mimikyu's disguise. And I do think that was the best course of action for me, because if I went to Eternatus and he got the Sword Stance up, that could have been very deadly. He could have gotten 2 Sword Stances up, and at that point, Azu it would be very hard for Azu to actually come out of that on top. So I'm gonna go for a follow-up Max Geyser, but instead of going for Max Phantasm, he just goes for the Phantom Force, and I'm gonna KO this Mimikyu, and I'll have a fairly healthy Azu and an Eternatus against Heatran plus Dynamax. So if I can actually weather this Heatran's Dynamax, I am actually going to be in a winning position. And if he goes, I'm kind of hoping he goes for the Max Quake. And judging by the Earth Power roll, I definitely live the Max Quake here. And with the rain, Liquidation should be doing a ton. But he goes for the Max Overgrowth, and that kills the Azu for sure, and I lose the game. So where did it go wrong? I think him getting the Mimikyu in on the Endeavor for free, that was a very big turning point. I could have predicted that and went for Moonblast. And without the disguise, Azu was in a really good position to just take over the game. And alternatively, I could have actually switched out into the Eternatus on the Max Overgrowth. And with the recovery from the grassy terrain, I could have just subbed down, waited for his Dynamax to run out. And that actually could have been also a winning position for me. But I'm going to lose this one. Unfortunate. I do think I definitely misplayed a few turns. But that was a series of misplays, not just one. So hoping I can do better on this one. He has Sand Core with the Hippo and the Excadrill. He also has an Eviltal. Hippo plus Eviltal. Pretty threatening. And he also has a bunch of electric types. And I'm still going to bring the Azu, even though despite the 2 electrics. And I'm actually going to bench Eternatus this time. I'm going to bring Lando, which has good matchup against the Exca and the electrics. And he leads with the Urshifu. And because he had very little switch into Whimsicott on Moonblast, I am able to get this really free Moonblast here. And let's see what his check is to this Whimsicott. He goes for a Scarfed U-turn. So that is good to know that no other Pokemon on his side can be Scarfed. And he brings out the Tapu Koko, an interesting pick here. And because Tapu Koko doesn't really have too much to threaten the Whimsicott directly, unless it has some really strange physical moves, like, for example, Iron Head and Brave Bird. And I'm a bit scared of that. I do think about subbing to try to scout. But yeah, if I subbed, I might just die to the Dazzling Gleam. And I didn't want to do that. Just go for the Moonblast. Fortunately, he is not physical. And I take out the Koko, starting on the right foot here. And Urshifu comes back on the field. But now Whimsicott is in KO range of either U-turn or close combat or just about anything he locks into. As long as it's not, for example, Thunder Punch. He goes for Surging Strikes. And this should usually knock out the Whimsicott. I have no bulk investment. And yeah, each strike is doing 20-ish damage, so clean knockout here on the Whimsicott here. But he is locked into Surging Strikes. And I'm able to take advantage of that by going immediately into the Azu. But I'm going to Dynamax here. I'm a bit concerned here. If he were to, for example, go for the Max Lightning on my Azu and I don't Dynamax, that might just knock me out in one hit. So I didn't want to risk that. Dynamaxing would make sure that I survive that. But he doesn't go for it, he doesn't have it, or maybe he expected me to Dynamax. So without a Focus Sash, Urshifu just gets one hit KO'd. And his final Pokemon is Yveltal. And he is, of course, going to Dynamax. He does not want to get one hit KO'd by this Max Starfall. And let's see how Yveltal fares against the Azu. So he goes for the Max Airstream, and he does 200 damage, approximately, with a critical hit. So if he were to get the same roll again, he would be doing somewhere around 130, 335-ish. So that's why I stay in and go for a Max Starfall again. And he goes for another Max Airstream, and this time he gets a higher roll. Maybe the first one was a very low roll, and my Azu unfortunately goes down because of the critical hit. Now I have no other option. I am just going to go into Lando, and I forget that this Lando on this team is Life Orb. So I could have just gone for the Rock Slide here and that would have KO'd for sure. But I thought Rock Slide was not going to get the KO. It doesn't without the Life Orb, and I go for the Fly. And that's going to leave me open to a potential Roost play. He does seem to be a physical Yveltal, and I'm going to go for the Fly. Now let's see if my misplay comes back to bite me if he has Roost.
But a lot of these physical Yveltal I've seen on the high ladder are choice banded. So hoping that he doesn't have the roost. He goes for the lash out. So yeah, that is almost certainly choice banded Yveltal. And I am able to come out on top. A bit of a sloppy couple of games, but I wanted to put this out as soon as possible. Thank you guys, bye.